Hello and welcome to this presentation on volume licensing for the small to medium-sized business. My name is Vicky Lee and I'll be taking you through this presentation today. In this presentation we'll be looking at the Microsoft licensing solutions, concentrating on the programmatics of the Open Agreement and the 3 Open Value agreements. So let's start off by looking at the Microsoft licensing solutions. So there are 3 key ways in which to buy a license, and first of all we've got full package product, and this is really where you would go to retail and you're buying the boxed copy of your software. So very convenient if you just want to purchase one license, for instance. And as it says on the slide here, typically one box does equal one license, though as you can imagine there are exceptions to that rule along the way. Secondly, there is OEM licensing, and this is where you purchase your license with your brand new computer. So for instance, you buy your new machine, it comes with a copy of Windows 8 pre-installed on it, and that would be a Windows 8 OEM license. And then finally we have volume licensing, where there are a whole host of different volume licensing agreements that you can buy through, and they're aimed to suit different types and sizes of organisation. And this really is what we are concentrating on today, but focusing around the small to medium-sized business. Before we look at the actual volume licensing agreements that are available, we do just need to think about a few concepts. First of all is the license type, and the fact that when you're purchasing a license, you can purchase either a perpetual license or a non-perpetual license. Now with a perpetual license, you are effectively buying the rights to use that software forever. So if you purchased an Office 2010 perpetual license today, you would be licensed to use Office 2010 forever. You might not want to do so, but the license would be in place. Where with non-perpetual, you're effectively renting that software. You're buying the rights to use the software for a period of time, and that is generally a 3-year period. And as you can imagine, there are advantages and disadvantages of both of these. There's no right or wrong. It's obviously whatever suits you best. So it might be that you do like to pay for your software, own it and not have to think about it ever again. Or it might be that you want some of the benefits of non-perpetual, the short-term usage of licensing, the fluctuation of desktop count that comes with it, a whole host of things, some of which that we will see a little bit later on. The next concept to think about is the whole software assurance side of things. And again, you will see more on this in a whole presentation all of its own about SA. But software assurance is an extra that you can purchase with your licenses, and when you're buying through volume licensing, this is where you can buy your software assurance. And it really consists of a whole host of benefits to help you with, supporting the software, services for installing, obviously different technologies available through SA, a whole host of different features there. And then the last concept to talk about is that of qualified desktops. So certain agreements do require that you license all of the machines inside of your organisation and that you're licensing all of what we call qualified desktops. So we will look at those agreements shortly, but if we think about what makes a qualified desktop, it is any machine that is capable of running the enterprise software, so Windows 8 or Office 2010 for instance. But there are certain devices that shouldn't be included, and you'll see that that's any PC that is being used as a server, any device running an embedded operating system that does not access a virtual desktop infrastructure, and any devices that are only used for a line of business application. So I don't know, you might have a PC dedicated to run a hotel management system, for instance, and it doesn't run anything else. You would not count that. So that's just to introduce the concept of a qualified desktop, and we will see them in action a little bit later on. So let's now move on to look at the actual volume licensing agreements. And as I mentioned before, there are a number of different volume licensing agreements out there aimed at the different sizes and different types of organisation. One key thing is always knowing which is the best agreement to purchase through. But there are a few factors which distinguish those different agreements and help to identify the best one to purchase your licenses through. So that's what I'm going to look at now. So the first thing to think about is size of organisation. How large is the organisation that's buying the licenses? If they're a small to medium sized business, and in other words the 5 to 250 PC count, they're best off buying from one of the blue agreements. If they're a medium to large organisation, so more than 250, then it's the pink row that we would actually be looking at here. And when we think about these agreements, the agreements for the small to medium-sized business can be sold by any reseller, whereas the agreements for the larger organisations can only be sold by the large account resellers, or LARs. So the first thing is always size of organisation. Next step then is licence type. Do you want a perpetual or a non-perpetual licence? And we've already talked about the difference between those. So if you want a perpetual licence, you'll be buying from the agreements kind of over on the left-hand side, open value non-company wide or open value company wide. And if you are after a non-perpetual licence, so you effectively want to subscribe to that software, you'd be going for something like open value subscription. So you've got to think about that own or rent side of things. The next factor is standardisation. So you can see the agreements with all PCs written by them are agreements where you're committing to standardise on certain pieces of software. And you're saying, do you know what, if I buy through this agreement, I'm going to say that I will put Windows 8, for instance, on every single qualified desktop in my organisation. Or I might put Office 2010 on every single qualified desktop in the organisation. So those agreements require standardisation, but you will get a discount on your licence price for doing that. And then finally, there's software assurance. So all of the agreements with SA included written on them, when you buy licenses through those agreements, you are committing to buy software assurance. So you have to buy license and SA. Whereas with Open and Select Plus agreements, software assurance is an optional purchase, so you don't have to buy it, but you can choose if you want to. So really there's 4 key things to think about. How large is the organisation? Do you want perpetual or non-perpetual licenses? Do you want to standardise and put the same software on all of your machines in the organisation, or have complete flexibility with your licence purchases? And do you want software assurance or not? And when you know the answer to those 4 key factors, you will then know which volume licensing agreement you should buy your licenses through. Okay, so we've positioned the agreement. So what we need to do now is go into a little bit more detail on the agreements for the small to medium sized business. And we are going to start off with the open agreement. This slide then shows some of the key facts about the open license agreement. So for instance, to start purchasing through an open agreement, there is a minimum purchase requirement of 5 licenses. So that really means, any size business could hit this, but it could be 2 copies of Windows, 3 copies of Office, for instance, making your 5. But it is worth noting as well here that software assurance does count as a license. So, if you had 3 copies of Windows, all with software assurance, then you've hit 6 licenses at that point, and that would be fine to start purchasing. They are perpetual licenses, as we've seen already, so you're buying the rights to use the software forever. And software assurance is an optional purchase, as already mentioned again. Now, it's a 2-year agreement, so it is the shortest of the agreement terms. And it has 2 pricing levels based on points and pools. So I will come to that momentarily. And then finally, upfront payment. So you do have to pay for licenses in full at point of purchase in an open agreement. There is no option for spread payments, even if you have purchased software assurance. So let's think about the points and pools and how this actually works. So you come along and you say, right, I want to buy some licenses through an open agreement. And what we have to do is work out the price level that the open agreement would be working at, because the price level is set at the very start of the 2 years of the agreement, and it's held for the full 2 years. So when you're starting an open agreement, you basically make a shopping list of all of the licenses that you want to purchase. And you split those licenses into the 3 different pools of systems, applications and servers. The systems pool contains the client operating system, so in other words, Windows 8. The applications pool contains everything Office, so all of the Office suites and the individual Office applications. And the servers pool is everything servers, so server licenses, CALs, external connectors, all of that side of things. So you split the products you're purchasing into the 3 separate pools, and every product has a points value attached to it. And it is just a case of adding up how many points worth of licenses you're purchasing in that particular pool. So you can see here Windows 8 is 2 points. So if you were buying 10 copies of Windows 8, that would be 20 points worth of licenses that you're purchasing. It is worth noting that if you are buying software assurance, the software assurance has a points value attached to it. And as it says on the slide, that is half the license points per year of the agreement. So it's a 2-year agreement for Open. So you can effectively just double the points for that license if you are buying software assurance as well. So you've gone through, and for each pool, you have individually calculated how many points worth of licenses you're purchasing. And the total points in an individual pool then sets the price level for that pool. So when we think about the price levels for the pools, for any pool where you're just buying a few licenses, so 5 licenses or more, you would go into the Open Business price level, which you're also seeing referred to as NL, no level. So for pools where you're not buying that many licenses, you would be in Open Business. For any pool where you hit 500 points, you then go into the level C pricing, which has also in the past been referred to as open volume. So if you ever hear open volume being mentioned, that is level C pricing in an open agreement. So the number of points, if it's over 500, you go to level C. If it's under 500, you're at the NL or open business price level. And as I say, that price level is set at the start of the 2 years and held for the full 2 years of the agreement. So if you carry on buying licenses through that agreement, they would be bought at the same price level. So one thing to bear in mind is that if you do have an open business price level on an open agreement, and then you're going to put through a very large purchase of licenses, which would be enough to get you up to level C pricing, what it is actually better to do is to start a brand new open agreement at the level C pricing and buy the licenses through that agreement at that level. So the last thing we need to think about is what happens at the end of an open agreement, and this varies a little bit depending on what you've actually purchased. So if you've purchased your licenses without software assurance, as you can imagine, during the 2 years of the agreement, and I've already mentioned this, you can carry on buying licenses at the same price level, so no real surprises there. But when you hit the end of the agreement, what actually happens? Well, you can carry on using the licensed version forever because you have purchased a perpetual license. So as I said before, you're licensed to use that software forever. It is not possible to add software assurance to that license, and it is worth noting that you can only ever buy software assurance at the same time as you buy the license. You cannot add it later. And then if you wanted to purchase any new licenses, then you would need to start a new agreement to purchase those licenses. If you've purchased licenses with software assurance, during the 2 years of the agreement, again, you can buy more software. And obviously, you would use those software assurance benefits and, make the most out of that investment in SA. At the end of the agreement, you have got some options. You could renew your software assurance and keep that going for another 2 years and obviously make the most of all of those benefits. Or alternatively, if you don't renew your software assurance, you are licensed for whatever version of the software was current at the end of the agreement. So if a new version came out during the time of your software assurance, you're licensed for that new version, so you can obviously use that. And again, if you want to buy any new licenses, you would need to start a new agreement to do so. Okay, so we've finished with the open agreement for now, so let's move on and look at the open value non-company-wide agreement. And again, let's have a look at the key facts with an open value non-company-wide agreement. So again, it's a 5 license minimum to start purchasing through an open value non-company-wide agreement. But because software assurance is included in this agreement, software assurance does not count as a license like it did in open. So it's actually really a 5 license and software assurance to begin purchasing. They are perpetual licenses, as we saw before, so you're buying the rights to use the software forever. And as I've just highlighted, SA is included in these license purchases. It's a 3-year agreement, so a little bit longer than the open agreement. There is just one price level in open value company-wide, but a choice of payment options. You can either pay up front, so pay in full at point of purchase for the license, or you could go for spread annual payments. And the cost of the license in SA is literally just split up into annual payments. And depending when you've purchased your license, if you've purchased it in year 1, that would be split into 3 payments. So we've looked at open value non-company wide. Let's move on now to look at open value company wide. And again, think about the key facts. Now this time it is 5 PCs to qualify. So the first 2 agreements were 5 license. This time it's 5 PCs, and that's 5 qualified desktops. They are perpetual licenses again, and software assurance is included. It's a 3-year agreement. We do have the desktop standardization requirement here. So this is one of those all PCs agreements. So I'm going to come back to that and look at that in a bit more detail. And there are discounts for doing the standardization, which again we will look at. And as with open value non-company wide, with company wide again we have a choice of paying up front for our license, so in full at point of purchase, or we have the option of splitting the payments into spread annual payments. So how does the open value company wide agreement really work? Well, you come along and by buying through this agreement you are saying, do you know what, I'm happy to put a certain platform software on every single qualified desktop inside of my organisation. So you count up the number of qualified desktops that you have and then choose at least one platform product and license all of those qualified desktops with the chosen platform products. And you'll see here with our platform products that we have a choice of Windows 8 Enterprise Edition, but you are actually allowed to install Windows 8 Pro or Windows 8 Enterprise, so just be aware of that. Office Professional Plus, and then one of your CAL suites, so either Core CAL or Enterprise CAL suite. And again, you are allowed to mix and match your CAL suites. So if you do go for a CAL suite, you have got to have 100% coverage on that CAL suite, but it could be, 50% Core CAL, 50% Enterprise CAL. That would be fine. So what you do is you choose your platform products and you choose 1, 2 or all 3 of those platform products, and then you license all of your qualified desktops with the platform products that you have chosen. And there is a commitment absolutely to cover all of those qualified desktops with the chosen platform products. So I think what we just want to do is just take a little aside and just remind you of some of the key components on these platform products. So Office Professional Plus is obviously the edition of Office that you can choose through your open value company wide. And we know through volume licensing that you do have the option to purchase Standard or Professional Plus. You can see here Professional Plus is the fully loaded edition of Office with things like Access, InfoPath, Link and SharePoint Workspace on top of them, and the integration with the server products. But it is only the Professional Plus edition that is available through Open Value Company Wide. You can't license Standard as one of the platform products. The other thing to think about were the CAL suites. So with those CAL suites, it is a suite of licenses that you're purchasing, and they tie back to the server and CAL licensing model. So let's just have a little recap of the server and CAL licensing model. So you can see on this slide, top right hand corner, we're thinking about SQL Server 2012 Standard Edition. So that's what we're licensing here. And with server CAL licensing, it is a case of purchasing a server license for all of the servers running that software. So if we've got 3 servers here running SQL Server 2012, we purchase 3 server licenses. And then you purchase your CALs, your client access licenses, for all your users or devices who are accessing the services of that server. And the difference between user and device CALs is just literally that ratio of people to devices. So on the left-hand side, where an individual person is using many devices, it's most cost-effective to license with the user CAL. Where on the right-hand side, we have one device used by many people, we would license with device CALs. And then we've got our external users who are the non-employees of the organisation. If we want to allow any of them to access the services of the server, again, we would purchase user or device CALs for them too. And then it is just worth remembering that with our server CAL licensing model, that some products such as Exchange and SharePoint Server have a choice of standard and enterprise CALs. And the CALs that you go for are based on the functionality that you want to work with. So imagine this is Exchange Server that I'm running on my 3 servers, and I've bought my 3 Exchange Server licenses. If I want my staff just to get at the core functionality of Exchange Server, I would purchase just an Exchange Standard CAL. And if I want them to get at the full functionality of Exchange Server, I would purchase both Standard and Enterprise CALs. And do remember, you can never, ever, ever have an Enterprise CAL without the underlying Standard CAL. And the same then would be true for my external users as well. If I want them to get at the full functionality, again, they would both have Standard and Enterprise CALs. So when you're purchasing those CALs that we've just taken a look at, through the Open Value Company-wide agreement, they are available in the 2 CAL suites. So we have the Core CAL suite, which you can see consists of the Windows Server CAL, the Link, Exchange and SharePoint Standard CALs, the Configuration Manager Client Management License and System Center Endpoint Protection. So they are the 6 components sitting inside of Core CAL. Or alternatively, you could license with the Enterprise CAL suite. And the Enterprise CAL suite, you can see, contains the whole of Core CAL, plus all of these extra licenses on top. So the Rights Management Services CAL, the Enterprise CALs for Link, Exchange, SharePoint, the Client Management Suite for System Center, the Forefront Unified Access Gateway or UAG CAL, and the Forefront Protection Suite. So a very comprehensive selection of licenses available in those CAL suites. And the last thing to think of here again, and we've seen this slide before, so it's just a reminder that the Open Value Company-wide agreement was an agreement where you were committing to license all of your qualified desktops with at least one of the platform components. And this slide, just as a reminder of what makes a qualified desktop, obviously any machine capable of running the enterprise software, but those 3 sort of devices in the middle of the slide that should not be included, any PC used as a server, a device running embedded OS that does not access a virtual desktop infrastructure, and any devices that are only used for a line of business application. So just to return to this platform slide then, to act as a reminder of what we were talking about, we were looking at the Open Value Company-wide agreement and saying that when you buy through that, you have to license all of your qualified desktops with at least one of the platform pieces of software, so Windows 8 Enterprise, Office Pro Plus, or a combination of Core and eCal. And obviously we've just taken a quick sideline to highlight what's in Office Professional Plus and what's in the Core CAL suites and what they're all about. But if we draw ourselves back to the Open Value Company-wide agreement now, we're licensing with at least one of these components, and we are getting discounts on the license price for doing so. So let's have a look at what those discounts are. So there's 2 key discounts, the company-wide discount and the platform discount. Now the company-wide discount is saying that all of the platform products are 10% cheaper when purchased through an Open Value Company-wide than they would be when purchased through an Open Value non-company-wide. So the individual components attract this 10% company-wide discount, and that really is in recognition of the fact that that software is being put on every qualified desktop inside of the organisation. There is then a further 15% discount, which is the platform discount. And that one comes into play when you license with all of the platform components. So when you've gone for Windows 8, Office Professional Plus and the CAL suites, you've got all three components, then you get the extra 15% platform discount. There is also the volume discount, which is what we call the Open Value 250. And this attracts a level C discount. And this is really another price level for any organisation that has more than 250 seats. Because really, as I kind of alluded to earlier, Open Value Company-wide is for organisations that range in 5 to 250 in size. But there is nothing to say that if you're a slightly larger organisation, you can't buy through an Open Value Company-wide. So because you can, you've got this OV250, and as you can see here, if you sit in really the 250 to 750 seat organisation, then you can absolutely purchase an Open Value Company-wide. You would get this level C pricing, and that pricing is equivalent to an Enterprise Agreement level A, which would be the alternative agreement to buy through. So let's just move on now then to look at our last agreement, which is the Open Value Subscription Agreement. So if we look at the key facts about the agreement, we can see that very like Open Value Company-wide, this is a 5PC entry level into the agreement. But the key difference here is that they are non-perpetual licenses, so you are effectively buying the rights to use that software for the 3-year period. Software assurance is included and it is a 3-year agreement. Desktop standardisation is required in exactly the same way as Open Value Company-wide, and again there are discounts for doing this. And when it comes to payment options with Open Value Subscription, it is just spread annual payments. So let's have a look at the discounts associated with this agreement. So again, the Open Value Subscription Agreement works in a very similar way to the Open Value Company-wide. When you're buying through this agreement, you are committing to license all of your qualified desktops with at least one of the platform products. But the key difference this time is that they're non-perpetual licenses. So you do not own the rights to use the software, you are subscribing to that. Now, as they're non-perpetual licenses, the cost is less in the first place. You do then get a platform discount. So if you take all three platform components, so Windows, Office and the CAL suites, you will get a further 5% discount on your license price. But there is also an option for an up-to-date discount. And you can see the up-to-date discount, or what you might see written as UTD. And this discount is 50% off your license price in the first year of the agreement. And you get that discount for any platform product you already own. So imagine that you had 50 qualified desktops that you want to license all of them with Office Professional Plus. And you want to do that through your Open Value Subscription Agreement. But you already own 10 copies of Office. You're going to have to effectively double license 10 of those machines, because you can't say, I already own 10 copies of Office, therefore I only want 40 Office through my OVS, even though I have 50 qualified desktops. Can't do that. You have to license all 50. So in recognition of the fact that you have some existing platform products, for the 10 copies of Office that you do have, you would get the up-to-date discount and you would get 50% off your license price in the first year of the agreement. And then the volume discounts, the level C pricing, again works in exactly the same way as it did with the Open Value Company-wide. So if you are an organisation of 250 to 750 seats in size, you can absolutely have an OVS agreement and you would get level C pricing. Now, one of the key things about an Open Value Subscription Agreement is how the payment options work and the fact that they deal beautifully with fluctuating desktop counts. So when you're buying through an OVS, what you have to do is report at the start of the year how many qualified desktops you have. So we've started off with 100 and we've reported 100 qualified desktops, and let's say we're licensing them all with Office. So we would effectively pay then for a year's worth of 100 copies of Office. Now during the year, the desktop count fluctuates. And Microsoft does not care two hoots about that, and it does not want to know. It just wants to know what the desktop count is on anniversary. So you can see here on anniversary it's 110, so you would now make payment for the next year for 110 qualified desktops, and in other words, in this example, 110 copies of Office. Now during this year, the desktop count fluctuates. It peaks at 135. Again, Microsoft does not care two hoots. It wants to know on anniversary what the count is. It's dropped to 90, so now you would pay for a year's worth of 90 devices. So it's a really nice way for companies that do have fluctuating desktop counts, as long as they get the anniversary in a quieter time of year, which is the best way to do it, then you report the number of machines on anniversary, you pay for those, and you are licensed during the year, obviously if the account increases, to run the software on those machines. And then the last thing to think about is what happens at the end of an open value subscription agreement. So obviously during the 3 years, we know we're going to report annually how many desktops we have and therefore how many machines we're paying for. We've got software assurance, so we're going to obviously use all those SA benefits. You're only subscribing to the software, so we've really got to think about end of agreement and what happens. Now, one option is to renew that agreement. And if you want to carry on subscribing to the software, you will need to renew for another 3 years and keep that agreement going. Alternatively, you can buy out the licenses and turn them into perpetual licenses. So if you decide now that you no longer want to subscribe to the software, but you would rather own the software, then you can pay a buyout fee to make them into perpetual licenses. Or alternatively, if you no longer wish to use that software and subscribe to it at all, you can let the agreement finish, but absolutely you would have to uninstall that software and not use it anymore. So that concludes this presentation. I hope you've enjoyed listening to it and found it useful, and I wish you the very best of luck when taking the associated assessment. Goodbye.